Okay, so Freedom Planet, the story. Now it's gonna be rough. So we have essentially an epic space opera, except staying on one planet, with Darth Vader type villains with some occasional gruesome imagery and political intrigue in between. Starring our characters straight out of My Little Ponies. And no, it's not a sarcastic comedy. So there's a high contrast here. I'll make a video later about exploring what the deal is with anthropomorphic characters and what effect they have on people in the stories later, but simply said, one of the things about using anthro characters is the purity of personality they usually convey. We judge real humans on their physical properties to assess their worth. Ha! Denise Richards as a scientist? Models are stupid, makes no sense. Paul Blart is an action hero, he's fat, ha! With abstract animals, no one really cares, and we can have 8-year-old adorable Tails be a super genius and watch Big the Cat take on an armada of airships and soldiers, and we barely blink our eyes. So someone like Mila, we see her less like a collection of age, intelligence, strength, and purpose, but more as a personality, a state of mind. It's a dog, loyal, big eyes, open and honest, floppy ears, playful. It's those elements that the brain clings onto and uses to write the character in our heads. Her strength in a fight has more to do with her inner drive. He is selfish and greedy and overconfident, she is pure and righteous, ergo she is stronger, ergo she wins despite that dude having a bigger gun and a giant robot. Symbolic logic. It's fascinating to me that if a fight like this is seen with realistic warriors punching a giant robot to win, it looks much more comical. With cartoons it's just, cartoons. So the realistic ones look more comical than a cartoon doing the same. So goofy looking cartoon characters work perfectly in an over-the-top action game that already works on a more abstract level, which is why I can take a narrative more straight when it looks cartoonish than when it looks realistic. And Freedom Planet goes with a goofy direction but even more gusto. So for me, the use of goofy looking characters actually turns the comedy into an abstract charm, allowing me to take the narrative more serious than if it looked realistic. But hey, that's me, I'm a stupid weirdo. What about normal people? Because this approach can be a double-edged sword. If you like that purity, you'll love the approach, but if you can't get into it, it's revolting. Which is why most pop culture celebrated anthropomorphic characters like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Sonic try to balance out real-life action movie logic and cute symbolic logic. Well, unless there's no big action involved like with My Little Ponies. So anyway, someone like a Mila needs a strong counterbalance from the supporting cast. A Raphael or a Shadow to make the main trio more approachable. Which would be Carol. But is she up to the task?
I admit I'd prefer characters like Carol to be a little more Calhoun from Wreck-It Ralph and less Robo Dash the Pony. But what can you do? She's a wisecracking tomboy, she's driving a motorcycle, kicking ass, causing explosions, has street smarts, and focused on their adventure, and the overly cutesy moments are limited. So she works just fine as a tough girl. Really, Mila is the only one that really goes in the adorable little pony territory, and she has the least screen time of the main trio. Not to mention, even if you still find them too adorable for your violent action adventure taste, you got to know that outside of one sleepover scene, they are always dealing with danger or intense characters or the plot unraveling. So the story never strays too far from your intense adventure.
Right, but it's about initial attraction. Characters gotta draw people in before audiences can even find out how the story plays out. But yeah, it's not too bad. I love the humor. When it flows natural from the characters, it's great. Like a moment where after the short mayor is insulted, Mila jumps right in and digs a sandhill for him to stand on, especially since there's no dialogue or further interaction between the two. It's a great example of character purity. Mila's just so desperate to be helpful and make everyone happy that it just comes natural for her to just dive in like that. And Zhao is so self-obsessed and egotistical that he finds her gesture perfectly natural and doesn't even react. That's great, I love that. Although when the story goes out of its way to make jokes, then I'm a bit less charmed. It's a bit too much on the nose. As I said, the characters work mostly on an instinctive and abstract level, so as soon as they start to make wisecracks and break the fourth wall, it disrupts the illusion. Fortunately, most of Ford's comedy is used as mostly optional bloopers, so then, whatever. Even better is it when the comedy is using the fact it's a video game to its advantage. Not by having characters pointed out, but when it happens more naturally, like you get a victory screen symbolizing the character's joy and relief, and then the bad guy interrupts it and immediately attacks, thus making the surprise attack double powerful by tying video game and narrative logic together. Usually I hate fourth-wall jokes, but this is a great use of one. And the fact the game is already so depending on us thinking on an abstract level makes all of this works together greatly. The voice acting is great, there's a clear distinction in style depending on what character is talking. So silly characters are silly, while serious characters are completely serious. So that's great, every character works on its own level.
Being a voice actor, I wish I knew about the casting call earlier, but they were all perfect in their roles. The music is also very memorable and catchy.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, the big problem with the story is the pacing. The game's really smart in including a classic mode so you can play it without cutscene interruptions, but that seems to have given the writers a little too much confidence that they can go all out with the story. Last video we talked about how game story and context all worked in harmony together. It's one of the things I really like about this game. It isn't like Sonic Colors where you get a dramatic cutscene and Sonic and Tails worried about the safety of the Wisps and angry at Eggman's evil alien slavery machine, and then you go to the next level and whee, we're in a roller coaster and solving block puzzles. Or more fun is Sonic Glass World, where you're terrified observing Eggman's machine sucking the world dry and nature dying, and then let's go to Happy Candyland, yay! No. And these heroes are on a mission, and the next level will instantly pick up where the story left off. That's great. It creates harmony. However, there's one thing where the gameplay and story aren't in harmony, and that's with the pace. For how energetic and fast-paced the action levels are, the cutscenes don't have a nice flow to it. In the worst case, we play a level, then the Kingdom Stone gets stolen, then Mila's introduced, then the Royal Magistrate's told about it, then they hang around at home, then they go to sleep, then Carol wakes them, then Thor tells information about himself, then we see Brevon's opinion, then we get another waking up scene, then they get hired by General Gong, then they fly, then they meet Spade, then the city is under attack, and only then does the next level start. An action story might have squashed a few of those things together, like Torque revealing his alien self during the fall of the last action scene, and getting the exposition out of the way during the watching TV scene and stuff. The story is really written that it tackles everything it wants to tell or do one by one. Which is weird because during action scenes the story is paced amazingly. I love the speed characters, like when a villain escapes, Lilac immediately boosts after him, or bad guys immediately shoot a missile at the fleeing heroes. I hate it when animations are written step by step, character says something, then acts on it, like that. Especially when it's video game heroes who are screwing around because we're so used to immediately acting on impulses during the game. So watching our video game heroes suddenly be slow and goofy and inactive is so frustrating. So on that regard, Freedom Planet does manage to keep the energy and reaction speed of the gameplay intact during cutscenes, which is great, immersion. Too bad it isn't as fluent during the dialogue moments, where every story beat has its own location and its own discussion and its own individual moment. That's great in a book or something, but in an action game where having a story is already a complicating matter, getting the right flow is so ever important. I like action stories to be like a roller coaster, so I'm okay with downtime. You go up and you go down and up and down, so action, quiet, that's good. But, there's a rhythm to it. You don't want a sudden 10-minute long climb in the middle of a roller coaster ride. So there it is where it becomes kind of fanficky.
What I'm missing in this game is the moment where we experience the universe of Freedom Planet in its default state. For example, the heroines Carol and Lilac used to be rebels in a gang called the Red Scarves for a time, to steal from nations like a bunch of Robin Hoods before they left to start on their own. However, the game only tells you about this during cutscenes, where it's putting more twists on it, like when they found out their old buddy is now an enemy, or when their attempts to try to be a hero is backfiring as the generals or kings they're dealing with doesn't trust them because of their past behaviour. Now, all this information is made perfectly clear in the game, so it's not like it's confusing or a big problem, but there's a lot of emotional beats missing because of the awkward distribution of information in this game. It's like the narrator is often backtracking. Oh my goodness, look, this guy's your ex-buddy from the Red Scarves. Oh oops, did I forget to tell that the heroes used to be part of the group? Well, they were Red Scarves. Oh, did I forget to tell you what Red Scarves are? Oh, guess I explain them now. Bit hard to feel the emotional beats if the context of why something is a plot twist or ironic plot beat isn't revealed until when it's already happening. I think it's this that makes it feel a bit amateurish.
It is interesting how the game does immediately reveal all the secrets and backstories of the villains while keeping the main gangs past the secret. You'd think the other way around would work better. Now there's no more ambiguity left with the villains while we have to bend over backwards to try and figure out what the deal is with the heroes.
Like, what could have helped the game was like a prologue level, like a James Bond opening sequence. It would take place before Brevon starts messing with the state of the world. We play as the heroines when they are still rebels, so we're introduced to all the side characters in their natural element, with stealing so Lilac and Carol are properly introduced as rogues with a heart of gold. We're beating up General Gong even though he's just a guard doing his job, setting him up as a good intending man who has a reason to distrust our heroes. This kind of sounds like the beginning of Aladdin when Aladdin was running from the Agrabah guards. Spade is introduced as a friendly partner, so their later fallout has more of a punch. Now we're more involved with the inner politics of the world, and from that point on, the real story is slowly revealed and the influence of Brevin starts ripping in. So it's more the structure of a typical RPG. First world building and small adventures and villains, so we're familiar with the universe, and then the real trouble begins. So we have a personal connection with the universe while we see it collapse. As it is now, Lord Brevin is immediately introduced as the main villain. The heroines are immediately introduced as noble and helpful warriors. So now the stage is set for a very straightforward good versus evil story, and all the political nuances are completely overshadowed and feel like filler. Oh, I have to convince the guard that we're not lying? Come on, there's obviously a big bad guy there who's the real problem. Yes, the characters don't know that, but we as the audience do. So our patience for inner squabbles is low, justified or not. It's hard to care for the frictions between nations where they're only introduced after we already saw Brevin's might and power in full force. It feels like wasting time now. Now don't get me wrong, all the events that take place in the story still make sense in a story technical perspective. Everything happens for a reason and builds up to something. I'm not saying it's a plot hole or doesn't make sense or anything silly as that. It's just that the information and revelations have an awkward timing that robs the story from a lot of potential emotional power, and it makes it feel a bit clumsy here and there.
And again, I think the clumsiness is mostly from the story wanting to be about Lilac and the gang uncovering mysteries and the secrets of the war that's going on, despite that the story's actually immediately dangling all the mysteries and secrets in our face and revealing the main villain right from the opening cutscene, and then instead being coy around the hero's position in the story. Wrong focus.
But I get it. Freedom Planet is a homage to old games like Rocket Knight and such, and they don't waste time with political squabbles. Good guy, bad guy, boom. So opening with Big Bad Brevin taking over the castle brings that spirit into it. But yeah, trying to do two things at the same time now, and it's not an entirely comfortable marriage between simple action story or a more Sonic Sat.AM kind of story about rebels and politics.
It's a shame. Technically, I like everything the Freedom Planet story is doing. It just doesn't always work together. Technically, I love the fact there's quiet moments, being at home watching TV, dinner scene, quiet moment, holding up in the rain, nice character moments, world establishment. I love that stuff, but especially in an action game, quiet moments work the best when they're just quick moments. I would have liked the TV scene more if we'd immediately skipped to the morning and everyone just fell asleep in front of the TV. Give me a quick, how cute moment, while immediately snapping back to the plot. Don't get me wrong, the individual TV scene is neat, but it just doesn't flow with the game's energy in the story. And as many writers and editors have said about stories, the hardest thing about storytelling isn't coming up with ideas, it's killing the ideas that don't work. Because they're often very good ideas, just not here. I hear there used to be playable hub sections like in Lilac's house. This is a very good way to solve an enormous amount of cutscenes and make lighter moments feel natural with little bits of interactivity. Like in the RPG Grandia, you have dinner scenes where you can click on party members and they'll say something about their feelings or past or whatever. But there's also a big exit button so you can call off the dinner at any moment you want. An exit button like that is like a psychological help. When a cutscene just keeps going and going, it's one after another without any player input, you get increasingly more impatient. But I tend to find that when the game at least offers you a way out, a nice exit sign, that calms most players a bit. It's like, okay, I can stop this any moment I want, so okay, it's not too bad. Might as well check what's going on. I can't leave as soon as this goes on for too long anyway. Not to mention, it gives agency to the player. If I really like Carol and I want to know about her opinion, but I don't give a damn about Zhao, I just click Carol. If the player is annoyed that the heroes are standing around watching TV while they should be out adventuring, having a nice, everyone shut up, go rest up so we can kick some ass first thing in the morning option will ease down the pain a lot and create a closer bond between the impatient gamer and the heroes. Simple little tricks and cheats can help. I mean, sure, you can pause the game and skip the entire cutscene, but, that's drastic. That skips everything, including story beats. I mean, just skip optional character moments. Or like a hub where you can talk to the character individual, or just immediately rush off. I'm pretty sure most players will still talk to everyone and get the most out of it, especially when they feel they are in control. The impatient, hardcore gaming folk will probably just go for classic mode anyway. And sure, it sucks for all the effort you went into animating the sprites and the voice actors to do their best, but on the other hand, if the cutscenes are watched only by impatient, angry gamers, they won't appreciate the work you put into them anyway. It's a shame. I understand hardcore gamers despise and hate little pointless hubs and interactive story segments. This is not an obstacle course, there's no reward or punishment system attached, so it's not proper game stuff. It is a platform game, not an RPG, and platform games are not allowed to create an experience and be anything more than a non-stop obsessive marathon of hopping through hoops, which is a reasonable philosophy. However, this is a story-driven game. Regardless if platform games are a good core gameplay style around a narrative or not, you made a conscious choice to include a narrative, and therefore I think narrative-relevant elements are excused or even necessary to create a fluid experience. You give us the option to either play the game as an experience or as a game, so if I choose adventure mode, that means at the very least I have a passing interest in your world, so I'll be happy with hubs and take a little break and walk around and see what's up. Like, I hate it when I play, like, video games such as the Harry Potter games, and they put me in front of Ron's house, but I'm not allowed inside, only staying in the garden for tutorial stuff. Okay, it's a game, so sure, I need to and want to jump into volcanoes and fight monsters, but I'm not playing Action Person Action Land, the game, I'm playing Harry Potter, the game. So on some level, I want to be Harry Potter and experience the universe, like a digital tourist. So if you put me in front of interesting locations from the series, then I want to explore them. I want to see Ron's bedroom and point a laugh at him for having stupid furniture. Game purpose or not, I'm Harry Potter! Being this character and interacting with this world is why I got this game. I can jump into volcanoes and fight monsters in a million other games. So, don't be scared to let people just wander around for a while. This game is doing such a great job of making everything work in harmony that short little hop sections and interactive bits would feel logical to me. So, what else? Right, the villain, Lord Brevin. I hear a lot of gamers find him dull and bland. Weird because he has some good lines and is pretty intense. So I have to be cynically honest here and admit I'm worried that Eggman's degradation in the Sonic games is warping people's minds that villains have to be inferior and pathetic and unmotivated to be interesting. For a comedy show, that's one thing, but if we need villains in action games to be like the smelly kid in school in order for you to be motivated to beat it up, well, that's implicating a lot of nasty things about you as a person. But hopefully I'm exaggerated and off. Perhaps there are more natural ways why Brevin doesn't score enough points as a villain.
Good villains, just speaking about straightforward action stories like this, usually have three purposes. First, being a threat, presenting danger, causing conflicts. Second, creating energy, just static danger like a volcano or something is kind of boring. You want a villain that engages with the heroes, plays with them. And third, a villain usually presents some sort of moral dilemma, a lesson to learn. He might be a tragic figure who's essentially the dark version of the hero. An example, what would happen to the hero if he didn't have his heroic resolve or his friends to keep him in check? Or a test in itself for the hero. If the villain is just some sort of victim, can the hero save him rather than merely punching him? So, action cartoon villain ingredients. It needs danger to make the story real, energy to give it personality, and a hint of tragedy to give it soul. So in Freedom Planet, Lord Brevin only presents one: danger. Outside of a few cold one-liners in the opening, he isn't very energetic. And although he likes to think he's a tragic figure by bringing up the fact he's just on a planet to look for an energy source, he never even tries to cooperate with anyone or find an alternative energy source. He jumps straight into the massacre an entire army, decapitate the king, and torture his son part of his evil plan, way before any injustice or tragic desperation forced him into that situation, so we don't take this seriously. He's just a bad guy. Which, by the way, may also help him get a reputation as a bland villain. Because the opening immediately reveals him as super evil, the game's later attempts to bring moral ambiguity into the proceedings fall flat. Another reason why I wish Brevin was kept off the stage until the later parts of the game. However, Brevin is not the only villain. There's also Prince Dali, who, does have a tragic element of being traumatized and brainwashed. And then there's Serpentine, who behaves like your typical Saturday morning cartoon villain with ridiculous mechs, maniac energy, and slapstick violence. So all three together, they possess all the ingredients needed, but individually, they're one note. Also there's Syntax, the robot that does robot things. Let's not forget her. Shut up. Speaking generally over the entire storyline, I get all I need from villains. There's a definite danger for the heroes with consequences. There's mad energy and there's a moral dilemma going on.
Though I wish Prince Dale's story actually went somewhere. He has such a strong and intense setup, but his character doesn't really go anywhere. Oh well, future DLC I suppose. Anyway, yeah, Brevin, he's all over the place kinda.
Too bad his attempts at making himself sound deep with the silly "I'm just doing this to survive" shtick that nobody ever buys is making him look silly. Yet he does have that charming flair of bravado and egotism, yet sinister as well, like movie Voldemort or Beast Wars Megatron.
So yeah, Freedom Planet's story. I love, or at least respect, every individual part of the story, but it doesn't quite work. But hey, it's got ambition. I like ambition, and everything's charming and interesting enough so that I'm willing to overlook its problems. Especially with how well the levels just merge with the story, despite having pacing issues. Lot to like. If the experience taught the developers a few things, I'm sure a second game would be amazing if the developers can figure the details out. So, next video I'll be talking about anthropomorphic characters as narrative tools. Actually, really cartoons in general. The abstraction of the realistic human form. Till then.